If I had driven past her that night, maybe my life would have stayed a beautiful lie. My name is Alara Vaughn. For years, everything around me looked perfect. I had built my empire from nothing, learned how to stay strong, and trusted very few people. I believed I had control over my life. But that night changed something I didn't even realize was fragile. The street was quiet, almost empty, when I saw her. She looked weak, like she hadn't eaten in days. In her arms were two tiny babies, wrapped in thin cloth, crying softly. Most people would have looked away. I almost did. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way she held those babies so tightly, like they were the only thing she had left. Maybe it was the fear in her eyes. I couldn't ignore it. I told myself it was just kindness. Just one small decision. I didn't know that bringing her into my world would open a door I could never close. Within hours, everything I believed in began to fall apart. In the world I lived in, everything had its place. Every detail was polished, every moment carefully controlled. My days were filled with meetings, deals, and decisions that moved millions. People knew my name, respected my work, and envied my life. At home, things looked just as perfect. Selim Drake was everything anyone could ask for. He was confident without trying, calm under pressure, and knew exactly what to say in every situation. People trusted him instantly. When we walked into a room together, it felt like we owned it. We had been married for 6 years. Long enough to build a life that looked unbreakable from the outside. Our home was quiet, though. Not empty, just missing something. There were rooms that were never used, spaces that felt untouched. We never spoke about it directly, but it was always there, sitting between us in silence. A small gap that kept growing with time. We smiled, we hosted, we lived as expected. But sometimes, late at night, I wondered if perfection was just another way of hiding what we didn't have. That night was colder than usual, the kind that makes the city feel distant and quiet. Traffic had slowed at a signal, and the streetlights cast long shadows across the road. I was sitting in the back seat, lost in my thoughts, when something outside caught my attention. She was standing near the corner. Her clothes were worn and thin, not enough for the weather. Her face looked pale, and her eyes carried a kind of fear that didn't belong to a normal night. In her arms, she held two tiny babies, wrapped poorly, their small cries barely audible through the glass. For a second, I hesitated. My driver noticed her too and spoke carefully, warning me it might not be safe to get involved. Situations like this could be unpredictable. It was easier to move on, like everyone else did. But I couldn't. There was something about the way she held those babies, like she was trying to protect them from everything at once. I leaned forward slightly and made a quiet decision. Stop the car. In that moment, without fully understanding it, I stepped into something that would change everything. I didn't ask many questions on the way back. She sat quietly, holding the babies close, as if letting go for even a second would take everything away from her. When we reached the house, the warmth inside felt like a different world. Her name was Naira Hale. She spoke softly, almost like she wasn't used to being heard. There was a heaviness in her voice, something deeper than just exhaustion. I could see it in her eyes too, pain that had been there for a long time. I called for medical help right away. The babies needed care, and fast. They were weak but alive, and that was enough. Clean blankets, warm milk, proper treatment, simple things that made a difference. Naira watched everything in silence at first. Then suddenly, she broke down. Tears fell without control as she tried to thank me. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. I shook my head gently and gave her a small smile. "Everyone deserves a chance," I said. At that moment, I believed it completely. I thought I was helping someone start over. I didn't realize I had just brought something into my life that would change it forever. Naira stayed in the house, blending into the background, but something about her didn't feel right. She avoided being around Selim whenever possible, moving quietly when he entered a room. Her posture stiffened, and she seemed tense, like she was waiting for something bad to happen. Even small gestures betrayed her unease. Sometimes her eyes would dart around nervously, and she would flinch at the slightest sound. I noticed it, but I tried not to read too much into it. People who had suffered carried invisible scars, and I wanted to give her space. One afternoon, Selim walked into the living room while Naira was changing a diaper. Their eyes met for just a second. In that fleeting moment, his expression froze, subtle but unmistakable. Something flickered across his face, a recognition, a panic, but just as quickly, he forced a calm smile and continued as if nothing had happened. I saw it too. My stomach twisted, a warning I couldn't ignore. But I told myself I was imagining things. I didn't press it. I let the moment pass. It was a mistake I would regret, though I had no idea how deep the truth ran. Late that night, I was walking past Naira's room when something on the floor caught my eye, her bag, left slightly open. Curiosity nudged me closer. Inside, there was an old envelope, worn at the edges, like it had been hidden for a long time. I picked it up and carefully opened it. What I saw made my heart stop. Inside were photographs, Naira and Selim together. Smiles, closeness, moments that were meant to be private. Not just friendly gestures, but intimate, personal moments that no outsider should ever witness. I felt my chest tighten, my hands trembling as I held the pictures. There was also a folded letter. I unfolded it slowly, my eyes scanning every word. Selim, I can't do this alone anymore, these children need you. Everything spun. My legs felt weak. The room seemed to tilt, and I had to steady myself against the wall. This was no ordinary betrayal. This wasn't just a secret hidden from me. This was my entire life built on a lie. In that instant, I realized the truth. The person I had trusted most, the life I had believed in, none of it had been real. My perfect world had been shattered in a single, quiet discovery. The next morning, I waited for Selim in the living room, heart pounding, hands clenched tightly. When he walked in, casual and unaware, I didn't hesitate. I threw the photographs onto the table in front of him. He froze instantly. The images lay there between us, undeniable proof of what I had discovered. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. For a moment, he didn't speak, didn't move, just stared. Then, slowly, he closed his eyes and let out a quiet sigh. It wasn't supposed to happen, he said, his voice low, almost hollow. The truth hit me in that moment like a sharp blow. Naira wasn't just someone I was helping. She was his mistress. And the twins, those helpless, innocent babies, they were his children. My husband had been living a double life for 6 months, hiding it from me, pretending everything was normal while secretly building another family in my own home. I stared at him, struggling to comprehend how someone I trusted completely could betray me so completely. Every word, every gesture from the past months suddenly fell into place. The life I thought I had was nothing but a carefully constructed illusion. I realized then, the reality I faced was far more brutal than anything I could have imagined. I felt myself break in ways I didn't know were possible. It wasn't just the betrayal that cut me, it was the realization that the space in my life I had hoped to fill with our own child had been stolen, filled by someone else. The emptiness I had carried quietly all these years had been replaced by another woman's presence, another family, right under my nose. Anger and pain bubbled over, and I screamed, my voice echoing off the walls. What punishment was this for me? Selim stayed silent, unable, or unwilling, to meet my eyes. His calm facade had vanished, replaced by the faintest flicker of guilt. Naira crouched nearby, her tears soaking the floor. I had no choice. I didn't know he was married, she whispered, voice trembling. The room felt heavy, suffocating. Every corner held the weight of lies, deception, and broken trust. I looked around and saw 2 women, one who had lost everything she thought mattered, and another trapped by circumstances she couldn't control. And there I stood, shattered, realizing that nothing would ever be the same again. The life I had built, the love I had trusted, all of it had crumbled in a single moment. For 3 days, I disappeared. I needed space to think, to plan, to gather the strength I didn't know I still had. When I returned, I wasn't the same woman who had walked into that betrayal. Calm, controlled, and cold, I had a purpose. The first step was Selim. His business accounts, his investments, everything I could touch, I froze them. His name was removed from high society events, invitations cancelled, connections severed. The man who had controlled everything now had nothing under his hands. Then I called Naira. People around expected anger, confrontation, or that I would kick her out. But I was in control now. I looked at her and said quietly, "You can stay, but not with him." I turned to Selim, whose face reflected shock and fear, the tables now fully reversed. Without hesitation, I sent him out of the house, stripping him of power, status, and comfort. Every privilege he had enjoyed for years was gone in a heartbeat. I had taken back my life. The pain he caused no longer controlled me. I had the final say now, and it was a shift he would never recover from. 6 months had passed, and life had settled into a new rhythm. Naira had grown into a strong, determined mother. The twins were thriving, healthy and full of energy, laughing and exploring the world around them. I spent time with them often, quietly observing, helping when I could, and letting them feel safe and loved. One afternoon, as we were playing in the sunlit living room, Naira looked at me with curiosity and asked softly, "Why are you helping me, after everything?" I paused, watching the twins chase each other across the floor, and answered slowly, "Because you showed me the truth, and I reclaimed my life." The weight of betrayal no longer controlled me. I had turned pain into power, heartbreak into clarity. Naira understood in silence, her eyes reflecting gratitude and relief. On the other side, Selim's world had crumbled. Alone, bankrupt, and stripped of everything he had taken for granted, he faced the reality of what his choices had cost him. His charm, his wealth, his influence, all gone. He had lost everything while I, and even the woman he had wronged, had found strength in ways he could never imagine. Sometimes, the hardest truths are the ones that set you free.